Hey friends, what is up? Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I want to talk to you about the crappy mind. Now, I've written it out on the board here and turned the camera around so I can't see you, but I've done that so that you can see this without it being mirror imaged so that you can read what it says. It's a little bit wordy, but we're going to go through it. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about what it is. It's a really powerful model, and it's a model that many of the Stoics across history, people like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, even George Washington, they were all following elements of Stoic philosophy. And in many cases, that's what made them so powerful in their mind. And this is essentially the model that, they were working off in many cases. So CRRAAPPY obviously stands for an acronym. It's not saying our mind is full of shit. Although if you're not following a model like this, in many cases, that's actually what ends up happening. So it's a really clever acronym. It's a really cool play on words. Now, let's get into it. C stands for choice. This is right thought. It's understanding that we are a sovereign being. This is the first step, and without this, there can be no remaining. Like the rest of the principle can't work until we understand that in every single moment, we have a choice. We have a direct choice to choose our thoughts. Now, you might say, okay, cool. That doesn't work because if somebody does something to me that's so horrible or heinous and I can't reconcile it, I'm going to lose control of myself. Well, what you're actually doing in that moment is you are choosing to give your power away. Now think about it. You're using your laptop, right? Your laptop doesn't work the way you want it to. It stops working, something breaks, you get that blue screen that used to happen all the time. Something like that unfolds, right? And you get angry. You manage to get it working again, you start working, and then it stops working again. Then you lose all, the last several hours worth of work, and then you get even more frustrated. And then you get to the point where you start banging on your laptop. I know when I was younger, I had a laptop, and when it wouldn't do what I wanted to do, I would bash on the keyboard, just literally sit there bashing on the keyboard. And then one day, the keyboard actually collapsed into the laptop, and I took it into the laptop repair person. I was like, can you have a look at this? Something weird's happened. And they opened it up and they're like, well, that's really weird. Have you put a heavy weight on it or something? Because the little pins that hold the keyboard up off everything have broken. And I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Like, I've literally given my power away to a machine. And that's what we do. So this first step, choice, we have a choice in every given moment. We have the ability to choose where we stand. We have the ability to choose our thoughts, and in doing so, that is recognizing ourselves as a sovereign being. Without that, the rest of the steps mean nothing. Now, the next step is refusal. Sounds negative, doesn't it? Well, it's actually not, because what we're using it for is refusing temptation. Now, you might say, well, yeah, temptation's awesome. I love temptation. Well, it kind of ties us back to that first point. When we are in a position that we are catering to temptation, we're actually removing our sovereignty from the equation. Think about it. Like anything that you are not directly, actively choosing from a space of being sovereign, if it's choosing you, and there's so many things I could give examples for here. We could talk about food habits, we could talk about smoking, we could talk about shopping or gambling or sex or alcohol or drugs. There's so many different things. If we are not choosing it directly, actively, consciously, with full awareness of the consequences of that choice and choosing in the highest interests of ourself, now that might sound selfish, but it's not, and I'll explain why. But the fact of the matter is, we have given our power away, we've taken away our sovereignty, and we are no longer able to claim that we're sovereign beings. It's a really powerful understanding. Now, when I say working in the highest good of ourselves, how is that not selfish? Why wouldn't we work in the highest good of everybody? Here's the thing. Everybody in the world that we come across with, that we interact with, that we have an engagement with, is literally just a reflection of some aspect of ourselves. And a really powerful exercise you can use to prove that point, when you're involved in a next heated conversation, like discussion or argument with somebody, take a moment somewhere in that dialogue with them and ask yourself, just inside voice, like in your own mind, subliminally, don't do it out loud because you'll probably further antagonize the situation, but in your mind, ask, who are you and what is your purpose? Who am I and what is my purpose? such a powerful mechanism to help understand the greater context of the argument. And it all ties back to this. It ties back to making that choice that best serves us, because when we do that, we know that we are making a choice that serves the whole. The only true act of selfishness is when we act in a way that is on blind temptation. If we are choosing for the highest good of ourselves, that will flow on and carry out to everybody, and it works in the highest good of all. So it removes selfishness from the equation. It's a very powerful way to go about things. The next step is repulsion. Repulsion of the negative and the unaligned influences. This is something that Marcus Aurelius was really famous for, because he had this whole senate that was constantly in his ear and skiving behind his back and trying to, running these sneaky little deals and all that kind of thing. And Marcus knew that. And he still allowed himself to stand in choice, right thought of his sovereignty. That was what made him one of the original Stoics, was the fact that he could easily repel that negative, unaligned influence without it impacting who he was. Now you come back to your core. There's several ways of doing that. One of the most powerful I'm aware of is using the breath. We come back to the breath. The breath is ours. It belongs to us. It cannot be taken from us. If it does, we're no longer here. If someone takes our breath from us, not, oh, you took my breath away, but I mean, like, if somebody forces our head underwater and takes our breath away, if someone suffocates us, then we're no longer here and none of this matters anymore. We're out in the ether. We're playing in God's playground now. But whilst we are here, our breath belongs to us, and it doesn't matter what somebody does to us. This is what gives us the power in the moment as a sovereign being. We absolutely have this ability to stand in that space and come back to our breath and know that the breath is the anchor to our own center, our own core. Most powerful main line back to ourselves. Very easy to do. There's breathwork techniques that we can focus on as we progress along this journey as well. If that's something that you are feeling, if you are feeling this. And when we get to the end of this list, we're actually going to talk about how this all applies in life, because it looks cool, it sounds cool. What does it mean to us? We'll get to that. Ascent. Assent is about agreeing, right? We assent to something, we are agreeing with it. So what assent refers to here is knowing and agreeing with what is beyond our control. That is a huge part of being a sovereign being. It's a huge part of being a Stoic. And the fact of the matter is, so many people will bypass around this step. There's no assent. It's saying, okay, I can control this. Or if you can't control it, just completely ignoring it and turning away from it, both of which are harmful outcomes to us and what we're wanting to achieve here. So the reality is, assent is a really powerful step, because we have to be able to recognize what's outside of our control. Now, I'll give you a hint. It's pretty well everything. There is literally only one thing that's within our control, and it's us. It's within our own space, our own field. If it's in here, we control it. If it's out there, we do not. Understanding that. Assent. Knowing what's not in our control, okay? My partner is not under my control. I cannot determine what my partner does. My job is not under my control. I cannot determine what my boss does. If my boss decides to fire me tomorrow, that was outside of my control. I can be the best employee I can, but my boss still has the right to fire me. Things go broke. Lack of money. There's so many different reasons. There's a huge tapestry of reasons why this will unfold the way it does. The fact of the matter is, all of those things in those tapestry of reasons are outside of our control. What is inside of our control? Knowing what it is. It's ourselves. Brings us back to this. Right thought. Recognition of ourselves as a sovereign being. See, it creates a loop. Each time we come down the layer, it creates a loop back to the start of it, and then it comes down again. It's really, really cool when you think about it. This is how we become ultimately the masters of our own lives. Self-mastery. So knowing and agreeing with what's beyond our control. Knowing it's one thing. Like, knowing that my partner's outside of my control, I can't tell my partner what to do. I probably won't have a partner for very much longer if I do, right? Knowing that is one thing. Agreeing with it is completely next level. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong, because the fact of the matter is, I can know that something's outside of my control and then continually break myself trying to control it. It's really pointless doing so. So the fact of the matter is, we know what's outside of our control, and then we have to agree to it. Yes, I agree that's outside of my control. What happens next? Acceptance. We know what's outside of our control. We agree that it's outside of our control, but then we have to accept that it's outside of our control. Right? If we don't follow that triple step model, knowing, agreeing, and accepting what's outside of our control, we are going to break ourselves over and over again, pouring energy into shit that does not work for us. And what did we say if it doesn't work for us? If it's not in our highest good? If we're acting from blind temptation, if it's, we are then not working in the highest good of humanity. Bringing it back to ourselves. Flipping the switch on it. We then move into preparation for what lay ahead. What are we preparing for here? We are literally preparing to know when something comes up where we are going to choose to stand. Preparation. This is where the 7 pillars of self-mastery would come into it. We prepare ourselves. We prepare our body with the way that we eat, the way that we breathe, the way that we move, the way that we condition ourselves, with being at peace with silence and stillness, with understanding the dynamic nature of life, and with having commitment to the path. This is where that comes into it. We prepare ourselves. We prepare ourselves for whatever comes, knowing full well what's outside of our control, agreeing with the fact that it's outside of our control, accepting that it's outside of our control, and then preparing ourselves to be in complete control. Oh, it's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? How does it work? We're in total control because we've cut away everything that's not in our control, which is everything, and we're just bringing it back to ourselves. Now all of a sudden, you're gaining serious momentum in life, serious traction, because the fact of the matter is, you are not pouring all of your energy in trying to control something that is literally outside of your control. You've taken your inventory. You know for a fact that you can't control that. You've agreed to that. You've accepted it. And bang, you've brought it straight back to where you can control. That's what preparation's all about. Purpose. These are our guiding principles. This is our creed or our motto. And this is our highest priority. Understanding ourselves and what we are in this world. There's this awesome morning routine that I do, which includes these journal prompts. I do it every single morning. And I'll share the journal prompts with you if you decide you want to do it. But it's about understanding who you are and taking a very powerful inventory of yourself every single morning. Now, most people don't even take an inventory of themselves once in their life, right? You used to hear me say this all the time. The fact of the matter is, when the new iPhone comes out, when the new Galaxy gets released, you can't wait for your 6 months to come so that you can switch. You take your old phone back, which is only 6 months old, and you trade out for your new one, and yes, you've got the latest technology. Cool, you're a happy camper. You've got the best camera with all the lenses, and you've got the latest operating system, and you've got 5G, and you're really happy because you've got the tech. You've got it. You're on the leading edge. But you know what we don't do? We don't do that with ourselves. Why the fuck not? Why would we not do that with ourselves? So, would we wait 6 months to upgrade our own operating system when we are a dynamic human being that is changing by the minute? Like, look at what 2020 brought for us. We're not the same person we were when we came into 2020. By the time 2020 ended, we were completely different human beings. Moved into 2021. We're completely different human beings. And we're not even a full month into 2021 yet. So why wait 6 months to do this process? Taking your inventory every single day, understanding your purpose, your guiding principles, coming up with a creed or a motto, and then reviewing it every single day. This is what made the Stoics so powerful. This is what made Marcus Aurelius one of the greatest emperors of ancient Rome. Straight up. And then yearning, finally, the final step in everything we do, yearning to be greater than what we are in this moment. The competition isn't with anybody else. The competition is with ourselves. Who we are in this moment. And it ties back again. Taking our inventory. Next day, taking our inventory. Who was I yesterday? Because that's part of it. Where did I let myself down yesterday? Where did I not achieve the greatness that I could have achieved yesterday? Cool. I'm not looking at that to beat myself up. I'm looking at that so that I can review it, inventory it, and then create framework around how I'm going to approach that today. And, you know, it potentially sounds like it's too much effort. And if it does, cool. You're in the wrong place. I'm not going to mince words about that. This path is not for everybody. And that's fine. But then standing at the pinnacle on the summit of the mountain, that's not for everybody. Creating an amazing life that serves every single aspect of everything that you've ever wanted, that's not for everybody. And if you're finding that it's too much work, you know, you think about what the people that have leveraged themselves into positions of absolute greatness. Tony Robbins would call it those that had achieved outstanding status. Right? You think about what those people have done. You read their biographies. You read their manifests. You look at the way that they've lived their life, uncompromising. Literally, people that have read a book every single day for 12 months, like Tai Lopez claims. I'm not saying it's true or not true. I'm just saying that was his claim. Look at people like David Goggins and what he does within his own life, within his own field. Look at people like Wim Hof. Look at people like Deepak Chopra. Now, I don't care whether you like these people or not. I'm saying they are at the leading edge. And you read their biographies. Richard Branson, another great one. You read their biographies, their autobiographies. You read their manifestos, and you start to understand why they are where they are. And then you think about it in your own life. This is something that came up for me recently. I was sitting here, and I know that I've been coasting. The start of 2021 was a period of coasting for me. I'm sitting there. You know, I'm putting my bare minimum hours in at work. I'm not really developing what's in my heart and in my passion. I'm sitting doing the bare minimum with that. When I get free time, I might go for a run, but I'm only running the bare minimum miles I need to keep my body moving. When it comes time to stretching, I'm sitting there and I'm half-assing my stretching. And then the other morning I sat down, I was having my coffee, and bang, it came through like a lightning bolt. Just straight into my field. It was like, you got to stop being a pleb now, bro. You have big ideas on this planet. You have big things that you want to share. Now is the time to start stepping up because you've had your moment. You've had your rest. Cool. It's done. Step up. Let's get into it. If it's not something that you're willing or able to do, then guess what? You will stay where you are. You can sit at base camp, looking at the summit, longing for the mountain as much as you want. Your longing is not going to get you on the summit. It will require more than that. It's going to require you to start taking aligned action. Removing the unaligned and coming into an alignment within yourself. This is the crappy mind. These are the principles that help you become stoic in your own life. You know, you look at the term stoic. I always thought when I was younger, when I heard someone referred to as stoic, oh yeah, dude, tough guy, stoic, tough girl, stoic, powerful. I didn't realize that it was actually referring to this ancient principle, this ancient philosophy that many of the greatest leaders of humanity have embraced. And when I did find that out, I fell down that rabbit hole hard. And I started fleshing this out into my coaching. I started finding ways to write these principles that the Stoics had always embraced, that gave them so much power in themselves and in their life. And that power, once they'd embraced it within themselves, flowed out into everything else they did. It impacted those around them. They brought out the best in those around them. You know, and that's how does it impact us in our own lives? How does this stuff impact us? And how does that make the world a greater place? The more you step into your personal power, the more you give others permission to do the same. The more you bring wealth into your field, the more it allows other people to live at a higher standard of wealth. The greater your relationships become, the more other people will look, say, couple goals, and they will strive to emulate you. Very final point, this story I have to share. I was adventure racing with a guy, and he was just an amazing father and husband. You know who you are if you're watching. Absolutely amazing husband and father. I had just had a daughter. I was no longer with my partner, and my life was pretty shit back then. I looked at every single thing that I saw him doing. He didn't even know I was paying so close attention. But when he spoke, when we were on longer races and he was sharing, something about his children, or how he would work with his partner and create like a date night, or how he would, give her space so he would watch the kids and she would then do what she wanted to do, and then they would swap and they would take turns doing this throughout the week. And there was his time to go out racing or training, and her time to do what she wanted to do, studying or whatever it was. And all of it, I had this little fucking notebook, and I was taking notes because I wanted to be that level. I wanted to embrace that within myself. Yearning. I was yearning for that within myself in my own field. So I looked to somebody that was already living it, already achieving it, somebody that had, in my mind anyway, gained some degree of mastery over this. And you know what? It made me a better person. So if we're not seeking and striving and yearning to become the greatest version of ourselves in every given moment, if we're just sitting there plebbing it up and coasting, we're not contributing to the overall benefit to the race, to the planet, and to the whole. I'm going to leave you with that thought. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day, and let's talk again soon.